You know the one who never blinks through chaos. Tape the truth off late night cable. We grew up on static and midnight shows. MTV raised us, you already know. Latchkey hearts and wild-eyed dreams. Feral minds tearing at the seams. You say it's too much to unpack, but I see you wait, and I've got your back. Talk to me, I'm that Gen X friend. No judgment here, just truth and a Walkman blend. We screamed at the world, no one replied, but we danced through it all, yeah, we survived.
Hello, welcome back to that Gen X Friend podcast. Before I begin, as usual, I want to give a shout out to MB Radio. Thank you for giving me a place to share my voice about life. So let's get to it. So today, for those who are who's actually listening, I want to give a warning, perhaps. Like, I'm going to be talking about sort of talking about the First Amendment and our right to speak our minds. So if you think stuff like this might trigger whatever, perhaps skip it. Skipping this will be better. So, I've been trying to stay away from discussing anything that's happening in the moment that's inflammatory, whether it's politics or whatever, name it. There's so many things going on. Let's just focus on America. There's so many things going on in America, all around the country. But I've tried to not bring it in to my content, not because I don't have opinions about it. It's because I know most of us are just trying to live life and day to day. Right? Is my family okay? Are my fur babies okay? Are my friends okay? And beyond that, we are already exhausted by just daily living, right? It is a challenge. I've sort of touched on different things, like I talked about inflation or shrinkflation. However, but I never ever go into the politics, and I'm going to not go into the politics of things, but it will be dancing on the edge of this First Amendment issue. So, I'm a little, I got a little anxious trying to record this, because I have always been one of those people that have lived by the, hey, live and let live. You do what you want to do. I do what I want to do, as long as my actions or your actions are not encroachment. Like my asserting my rights is not encroaching upon your rights. Great, right? We got laws on the books that should keep us safe and protect us, no matter what group you belong to, what party you belong to, yada yada. But it seems like staying quiet is or just having my own opinions have become of something that others will not allow, which I don't usually comment on other people's posts. So, I'm like that meme that says, "Oh, see, Bob, look at," let's just use Facebook, right? Facebook posts that Bob does not belong or does not agree with. What does a smart Bob do? Smart Bob uh, just scrolls on past and don't worry about it. That's always been my thing. But it seems like when I post things that do not fall in line with a group of people, I get not just pushback, but illogical pushback. I am willing to listen. Heck, I am nobody. I am not smart. I am not intelligent enough to say that there's nothing left in this world that I cannot learn from. I can learn from anybody. Anybody can teach me something. For that, I am sure. But when I'm approached in a way where it's not based on logic, it's not based on fact, and it usually ends up in a ad hominem attack on me, or sort of passive aggressive, like, um, if you don't, and also the Bible and Jesus has been thrown in it. Think about this when you say that, without actually stating anything that I should be thinking about, because they have no idea what I think about. I know I'm being particularly vague, and that's the whole point, right? It doesn't matter what I say. It shouldn't matter what I say. If you disagree, you have the free choice to engage with me and show me with logical, sequential reasoning where I'm wrong. Great. I am happy to listen. Heck, I would love to have a conversation with people like that, because most of us do know that these conversations are few and far between. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. Yeah, it's a little, I'll do my best to explain it. And that's why I titled this, right? I made the title of this podcast, Absolute Power Cannot Be Criticized. I'm going to go a little meandering, like, well, it's very typical of me. So let me begin. Where I was born, you could not vocalize your opinion about the government, not out loud, not in a public space, heck, sometimes not even in your own homes. And people get disappeared, right? Just, they're gone, never to be found again. And this has been the case for as long as I've been alive, and most of my parents' lives. So I'll just give you an example. When I was still living in that country, I was very young when my family took me to a big city, and being very young and stupid, and I've always been very straightforward. So, from the mouth of babes. So we were doing something, and I not accidentally, I just asked something very innocently about what was happening. And my mother slapped me so hard, like whack across the face, to shut me up. And she was very, very like stern, almost threatening. And those Gen X people, you know, when your mama gives you the eye, especially after you got slapped, you don't want to do that again. She told me in such a manner to never say anything like that. Don't even open my mouth. Don't think about it. And I never, ever forgot that. I didn't quite understand when I was younger, but looking back at that incident, I know exactly why my mom did it. It was to prevent all of us from being disappeared. Yeah, let's just put it that way. It just one little girl, stupid little girl asking a question could cause the potential consequences could escalate to that point, right? And that's why, in a way, I came to live in America, because my parents understood that our futures, especially me and my sibling, we were young at that point, were not very bright in that country. Let's just put it that way. And we came here, immigrated legally to the United States, and sort of, you know, I would like to think that they had a sigh of relief, like, whew, okay, finally we get to live under this freedom that was not available from where we came from. And I was too young to understand. And I believe my parents were also, not because they're not intelligent, but they're too ignorant to actually fully digest and understand the incredible freedoms that we were allowed to live under, that were protected just from being in America, immigrating here, and of course later becoming citizens. And I can honestly say I didn't understand it much at all. Not like tangentially, yes, I understand it logically, but it was too macro. It was too big for me to understand. Not like, oh, I get it. No, that's awesome. It's a great thing to have all these freedoms. You know, the Constitution protects this and that and the other, freedom of speech. I didn't really think much about it. And even though I joined the military to protect our freedoms, it didn't really hit home. Really, really hit home until recent years. Let's just say that. Focusing on First Amendment, right? I have lived here since the 80s, and I have watched on the news protests here and around the globe, and how different governments manage protests, and those, not just in protests, but those individuals or groups or whatever, a collective speaking against and or criticizing the government, or just expressing any sort of dissatisfaction, disagreement with whatever that's going on in the country. And although I saw it, I recognized the differences. It's only in recent years have I found myself like tilting my head in confusion, like, huh? Who are these people protesting against? Um, and but using logic, you could feel free to protest. We are protected from that. First Amendment, right? Speak your mind. But the logics that are being used, using like the logic is from these people stating the reason for their protest is to protest against absolute power, right? Like dictatorships, authoritarianism, all this stuff that I actually experienced in my youth. And I didn't understand, because if people who are actually protesting this absolute power, first, absolute power, like my title says, cannot be criticized, nor would absolute power allow criticism to actually even be voiced. Sure, there has been uprisings that momentarily, right, was able to express anger, whatever, a whole slew of emotions, but they're usually, majority of the time, squashed with severe consequences for those who are caught, to include potentially their families and friends or acquaintances, and so on and so forth. It is, I don't know if anybody's heard of the book 1984. If you haven't, consider either listening to it or reading it. It is frightening. That's what absolute power is. You can't even think about disagreements. And that's the macro side, right? That's the absolute power as in the government, whether federal, state, local, whatever. You can't criticize that if absolute power was actually in place. That's the macro, and I'm going to bring it down to the micro. While the same people criticize, protest, which is their right, about their discontent and shock of this absolute power we are all in the grips of, I suppose, they also, at the same time, also at the same time shout down anyone, any thought, any opinion, any sort of whatever that have maybe the slightest of disagreement concerning, or that differs from their opinion. It doesn't matter. It could be big and small. It like sometimes to the point you're like, what? You mad about what? Why does it matter what I think about this? Does it matter? But because they feel so, I, I, I can't do the mental gymnastics, so I can't explain it. But this need to eliminate any voices of difference is what led me to do this podcast, as much as I wanted to stay away from it. Because, hey, man, do your thing. Have your own opinions. You're allowed to. Everybody is allowed to have your own. We are allowed to have our own opinions, right? As I stated before, if my right to exercise whatever I'm doing encroaches on your right, well, I should, because we're all protected by the same things, right? It's not like, let me use a example. Like, I want to drive on the opposite side of the road where everybody typically drives on in the US, because you know what? It's my right to, it's not my right by law, but I want to. I can, you can say, hey, you know what? You're allowed to have that opinion, but you cannot do that. Right? So there's checks and balances to keep that in order. This is completely different. Just imagine, this is just a thought, an opinion that may differ from whoever that decides to approach in a very logical way to try to convince me not to have those opinions. And it's become so pervasive and intrusive and also frustrating to manage, because I don't comment on the crazy that I see, because I want to be the nice Bob, right? I want to be logical Bob, reasonable Bob, and just scroll on by like, woohoo. I'll just post my puppy pictures and talk about, I don't know, post stupid memes about stupid things because I just don't want to deal with it. And as I try to stay quiet and watching these things happen again and again and again and again at a faster pace around our country, I feel as if staying quiet is no longer a possibility, because I'm going to bring it back to the macro. I lived in a country where you couldn't speak your mind. Even till today, I'm no longer there, but I still know what happens. People get disappeared. You cannot disagree. You cannot think anything other than what is dictated. And I find that almost painful, to like viscerally painful, when I experience the same stuff living in a free country by those who protest against absolute power and control that, logically speaking, realistically speaking, and factually speaking, cannot happen if we actually lived in absolute power. But when I just state my own opinions, whether with memes or whatever, I get berated. I get called all sorts of lovely things. Using the same ideology, the same sort of control that absolute power exerts, because it cannot be criticized. It's frustrating because I'm allergic to illogical things. I don't understand it. It frustrates me. I'm not saying I'm always logical, because we are human. So you can make your jokes. I have my own too, but that would be going too far because I don't want to offend anybody. Although I'm pretty sure I'll offend somebody. That's not hard to do. To try to please everybody is impossible. Somebody will always get offended. Heck, I get offended by myself for the things I do to myself. Like, what is happening here? So, but it is frustrating that, let's just use the First Amendment, right? I threw it in there because freedom of speech, we are protected. But I am not allowed, not that they can control me, but I am beat down in some very irritating ways because I did not voice in unison what they expressed. And sometimes what they express are contradictory of what they have just expressed. It's like, which part do you want me to agree with? So that's impossible. And I'm speechless sometimes, just awed by the hypocrisy, which I don't understand how some people, some groups can operate under, or just I feel like we're in a twilight zone. I have no clue how to even voice my frustrations, and that's why I'm doing this podcast. And as usual, I'm going to apologize if this sounds convoluted. It is a very frustrating thing. It's not about anything in particular anybody said. I have many examples, but just the exercise of absolute power and control to shut down, to delegitimize, to quiet, to silence any opinion, voices, or thoughts that are differing from theirs is the exact thing they are protesting against, which continues to happen on a large scale around the country, which baffles me. Because I already stated the point where if absolute power is actually in place, no such events, voices, opinions can ever be shared on that large of a scale, not even on a minor micro scale from the individual. So I like to sort of wrap it up because I don't want to beat a dead horse, and my stomach hurts from even talking about this because it's so frustrating to me. I like to ask one last question. I wrote it down just so I'm going to look over here, okay? Who or what in your life cannot be criticized or disagreed with without severe consequences? You can think about it. You don't have to tell anybody, but that is when you know absolute power is in place or trying to be in place. Regardless of what is being said, it's action that counts, right? If that's happening, if you cannot ask questions, if you cannot disagree, even if your opinion is ridiculous, I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to accept that. My opinions are sometimes ridiculous. And that's why we go through growing pains. But if even sharing disagreement, as ridiculous as it may be, cannot be done without suffering severe consequences. Perhaps that's where absolute power exists, or the application of absolute power. And that's it. Thank you for hearing me out. I may get pushback, I may not. It's not about anybody in particular. It's just about, first of all, federally, we have the First Amendment. But in our private lives, right, we should be able to share opinion, share thoughts, differing thoughts. How boring would it be if we all thought alike, we were all in agreement? What a robotic what a robotic existence that would be. And that's where my parents escaped from. Thank you for listening. I pray for you guys all the time. And yeah, I don't want to keep on dancing on the edge of politics, but I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully this will be my last. Next time, maybe I'll try to talk about something more fun. We'll see. Okay, well, I'm going to do the awkward. I have to push buttons now. Until 2 weeks from now, have a blessed day.
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25, and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.